So, this is a story that is kind of crazy, and I couldn't even write myself because it's one of those stories where you're just like, for reals? Guys, it has everything. It has like the big gloom, plot twist at the end. Like, seriously, this is crazy. So, I have to tell you, I'm just going to start from the beginning and then we will just dive right in because that is how this needs to be done. So, I finished a Secret Service. I posted the last chapter sometime January 2018. And so yeah, I posted it, and then on the 12th of January, I think like maybe it was a week later or a couple days later, I hit 1 million views. And for me, that was insane because I had never hit 1 million views that fast on a book. And so it was crazy. And then the craziness kind of started just snowballing because in February, on the 17th, I got a message from a literary agent. I was like, at first I was like, they're like, hey Joy, I'm a literary agent and I would love to represent your book. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Oh, that's cool. What? And then, it took a long time because I didn't think about getting traditionally published because I was like, I'm on Wattpad. I'm like, yeah, eventually I will do this, but I didn't think about it right now. And then so the literary agent contacted me and she was like, I want to represent you for my company, something books. I'm not going to say it because I can't remember it. And we looked up that company and I was like, okay, not really the company I want to be published with because I was like, they didn't have the quality I was kind of hoping for. So I was like, oh, okay, so maybe this isn't the best choice. I was like, okay. I was like, yeah, this is probably something I shouldn't say yes to. Okay. But it put the idea of publishing in my head for the first time that I was like, wait, this book could actually get published because, yeah, you always were like, oh, I'd love to be published and have a movie made and Zendaya will play the lead and it'll be amazing. But you don't really think about it actually happening. And so on 2 days later, I was like, okay, I'm going to say no to this literary agent. But God, I was like, I want to be represented by HarperCollins. I was like, oh, it felt like the biggest request for him ever. I was like, okay, the Bible it says, ask and you shall receive. I was like, God, this seems like crazy for me to ask because HarperCollins is one of the top 5 publishing companies in, I believe, the world. If not, it's in the United States. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to just leap of faith right here. I was like, God, I want HarperCollins. I was like, that sounds impossible. That sounds literally nuts to me, but I'm going to say it. And so I asked him. I was like, that's what I want. And then just a couple days later, I'm in Barnes & Noble, and I'm walking around the teen fiction aisle, and I'm just seeing all these beautiful covers and all these authors and all this stuff. I'm like, no, it's never going to happen. It's literally never going to happen. I was like, and I just felt so depressed. I was just, if you have ever played the piano, you start playing the piano and you're like, I can do this. And then you watch someone play the piano and they're amazing. You're like, what am I doing? I'm literally here going plinky, 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 plink. That's how I felt. I was like, I'm literally not going to make it because it's too big. Anyways, yes, I went into a hole, a very small, deep, shallow hole because my family wouldn't let me go too far into a hole because they're great. And then the impossible happened. 5 days after I asked God for HarperCollins, you want to know what I read in my messages on Wattpad? Hey Joy, I'm Catalina from Wattpad HQ. I hope you're doing well. We think your story, A Secret Service, might be great for a possible publishing opportunity with our partner, HarperCollins. With your permission, we'd love to pass it on for consideration. 5 days later, after asking God to give me HarperCollins, God was like, yeah, what's up? Right there. I was like, what? I hyperventilated. I've never hyperventilated in my entire life. I've never hyperventilated ever. And I'm there, I'm like freaking out. I can't handle it. I'm literally just a puddle of emotions. And so, yeah, I come down to my mom. I'm just like, I need to tell you something, and everyone has to be here. And so we gathered the entire family. My sister was like super annoyed. She's like, why do I have to come down? She's like, I was in the middle of something. Really, guys? And I was like, no, you want to be here. And so I told them, and we're all freaking out, and it was crazy. And then so I have a conversation with Catalina, and I'm sidetracked. She's talking to me on the phone, and she's like, yeah, we've looked at your profile, and you have a really good aesthetic. And a small part of me was like, dang right I do. Because I work really hard to get my covers so they all have a cohesive look. But when she said that, I was like, yeah, I know. Weird flex, but okay. Anyways, back on the trail of the story. So we send the book off, the contract off, saying, yes, go ahead, send this to HarperCollins with my okay, tell them that they should buy it. And then I wait. And I wait and I wait and I wait and I wait and I wait. The waiting kind of killed. But it was great. I got it right. I tried not to stress about it. They were great. They were like, okay, you'll probably hear back in the next 6 months. I was like, great. So I set my timeline for July. I was like, awesome. I'm going to hear back from HarperCollins by July. This will be fantastic. I'm super excited for this. As most stories go, that is not what happened. Because you have to have ups and downs in stories. I wish you didn't. It would be a lot nicer if you didn't. But it's okay. Came July. Nothing happened. It was fine. I contacted Catalina. I was like, hey, girl. How you doing? Any response? Anything? And she was like, no, not yet. She was like, keep waiting. I was like, cool. Totally fine. I'll just keep waiting and, biting my nails until I only have wrists because I will have eaten off my hands. It's totally fine. And then so it all happens. And I think in November, I contacted Catalina again. I was like, hey, have you heard any word? And they say no. HarperCollins has decided to pass on your book. And so I was like, okay. But the crazy thing is, they decided to pass, and in I think the same day or the next day, Wattpad's like, hey, I know HarperCollins has passed, but would you mind if we shopped your book around? And when they say shop, that means going to TV people, other publishers, and just saying, hey, this is the book we have. What do you think about making it into a movie, TV show, whatever? I was like, yeah, sure, go ahead. That'd be awesome. Okay, that's great. Thank you. And so that was crazy. And then they got back to me on a February 11th, which is funny. It's literally about a year later from when I hit 1 million views on Carter. And Catalina was like, hey, actually, we would love to put A Secret Service on the short list for Wattpad books. And it's when Wattpad was starting up their whole publishing company. And they're like, what do you say? Would you be willing to have it on our short list? We'd look it over. And I was like, oh, yeah. But part of me was shifted because I was like, okay, that's not where I saw myself going. I was like, I didn't think of Wattpad books as something I wanted to be published with. I was like, but you know what? I was like, it's smaller. It helps me kind of get my grounding in the publishing world. I love Wattpad. I've done really well with it. I love the company. And so I was like, yeah, go ahead. Put it on the short list. And then it was crazy. They're like, okay, we're going to put it on the short list. And then we are going to do we're going to look over it and make some minor edits. And then after those edits, if we want it, then we'll accept it. And it was completely crazy because I get a message and she's like, Joy, I'm halfway through the book and I want this book. She was like, I want Wattpad Books to publish this book. She was like, we don't even have to look at edits. She was like, we want it. So I'm like, oh, okay. She's like, yeah, how does it sound to be published with Wattpad Books? I'm just like, ah! My favorite thing was they were just like talking generally about money. They're just like, we're thinking just this percentage and all this stuff. And it was so great because I call my brother and he's in New York with my sister. And I tell him like what's going on. And my brother sometimes, he's Tristan from Mr. Right. He's based on Tristan from Mr. Right. And he can kind of have like that, okay, we shouldn't get excited. We shouldn't, we should just not like dive right in and totally like lose ourselves in this. And so he's like, no. He's like, we're not doing that for this. He's like, we're going to get so excited and we're going to plan how we're going to spend Joy's money when she sells so many books. And so it's great. He was like, I'm going to buy a brownstone in New York. We'll definitely buy a Paris apartment. And of course, in my mind, I was like, well, why not buy a private jet too? Because we'll need one of those. And so it was amazing. He was just so excited. And then we started contracts back and forth. I wasn't working with Catalina. I was working with, I'm going to say it's Catalina, though I worked with someone else through this. And we went back and forth for like 3 months. And we hired a lawyer and everything was looking pretty good. And then we got to this part of this contract that said Wattpad had all the rights to change anything in the story or the characters when it came to movies or TV adaptations. And that was one of the things I was like, okay, can that be changed? Because that's not something I feel comfortable with. And so we went back and forth, and some things they're like, okay, some of these changes we can make. And then just this one about, them having the rights to change anything. Well, it was interesting. I got on the phone with their lawyer, and it was such an interesting thing because I get on the phone and he just starts off talking and he's like, Joy, I have to tell you, we are so excited to publish A Secret Service. We love the book. We love the story. We're so excited to have it just be part of what we're doing here. And I start crying because I'm like, that's amazing to me that they're so excited. And then he was like, but here's the downside. He's like, we can't make changes to the contract. We have to have the rights to make it into a TV show and into change anything for movies or TV shows. And here's where the plot twist comes. I say no. I say thank you. But I'm going to have to bow out of the contract. And so, yeah, that happened. And it was such an interesting thing because when it came down to it, it's like, I've worked really hard to keep my books clean so I know that even a 12-year-old or a 10-year-old can read them and that nothing will be changed because, guys, I'm going to be honest with you. Think about it. With just how books are right now, there are certain things that they would want to change. They'd want to make one character gay, and when you do that, you change pretty much the core of the story because logically, the best person to change and make gay would be Link. But here's the thing. The entire story falls apart if you make Link gay because naturally he'd be in love with Donovan. That sounds so weird. But stick with me. He'd be in love with Donovan because, one, he's his only friend. He's this guy who's protected him all this time. And so he would never be friends with Carter because if he felt Donovan shifting his emotions to Carter, he'd be jealous and he would never want to hang out with Carter. So my entire story falls apart. So they would do that and they would destroy the entire integrity of the story. So couldn't have that. Donovan and Carter sleeping together. Yeah, that would totally work, except you would totally ruin all of Carter's character. Carter gets to the point where she's literally in mortal danger, going to face complete unknowns, and that's the point that she finally realizes, hey, I think I like this guy. And that's what she has the bravery to kiss him, because she's saying, I'm going to trust you with my life as much as I trust you with my emotions. And that's why you couldn't have them sleeping together, because again, Carter's super damaged. And if she wouldn't, because she'd be afraid of making the same mistake her parents made, just running into that you couldn't change that. Again, it would literally destroy the whole story. And then adding any drugs or alcohol. Guys, Captain is Carter's dad. You think he'd ever let her get away with that? So, those are the major things that I was like, you're going to want to make this different, because this is what sells. This is what is just in every TV show, in every movie, and I couldn't let it happen. So yeah, that was a plot twist. I said no. I said no on the chance of being published, because I was like, I can't do it, not only for myself as a writer and keeping the integrity of the story, but I can't do it for all my readers, because I want them to watch that movie and see exactly what they read and never feel like it was changed or altered because of some person saying we need to be politically correct, when that's not what this story is about. So yeah, I said no. Super sad afterwards, but like had so much peace, because I was like, no, I'm doing the right thing, and God gave me peace to do that, so that was really cool. And then I just set it aside. I was like, okay, I'm not gonna stress. Actually, no, scratch that. I totally stressed. And I was like, okay, I have a book and someone was going to publish it. So now I have to publish it, and I'm going to just get out to query. I'm going to query it, and I'm going to get an agent and all this stuff. And I was like, I just kind of didn't want to let myself grieve the fact that I lost this thing. So, I went really hardcore. So I sent it out to a couple agents, and it got denied, which, looking back on it, I don't blame them. You might be like, Joy, but it's such a great book. It is. I love that book. But there are things that need to be bumped up that can be enhanced. And so it needed editing. And then that's where the amazing thing was. I got to start editing with my mom. She's an amazing editor. And it just became this time that me and her could be together, and we worked on the book, and we tore apart the first chapter, and it would be like, okay, we're going to work on this section. You have to now rewrite that. And and it took us a long time to keep working on it. And so where are we now? I know in any other story, it'd be like, guys, I'm getting published now, and it's going to be with some other great publisher, and I have an agent and all that stuff. But here's the thing. I don't have an agent. I don't have a publisher. I don't have anything except you guys. And so I'm going to be super corny right now, because guess what? I don't care if I'm corny. The crazy thing about all of this was, looking back on it, you can be like, okay, but you asked God and he gave you like it seemed like he was going to give you HarperCollins, but he didn't. But here's the thing. God withholds no good thing. And the 2 years where HarperCollins was reviewing Secret Service and where I was going back and forth on the contract with Wattpad, were probably the hardest years of my life. I've been sick for the last 4 years, and I was like the last 2 years, I was in more pain than I could ever imagine, and I never would have been able to make the edits that were necessary for the book to be published. And if you don't meet deadlines, they can drop the book. And so even though it seemed like something I really, really wanted, God also knew that I was going to go into the worst like the most painful 2 years of my life, that actually giving me HarperCollins and then myself being the one who failed and couldn't meet the deadlines would have been almost more devastating than them just denying it. And so he didn't give it to me for a reason. And looking back, he'd be like, but you didn't know that, and it's really sad. And it's like, yeah, but God knew that. God knows exactly what's going to happen. And so it's just trusting him, and I trust him. I trust him with everything. And through all of this, it's just proven to me how much he's in control and how much just relying on him makes the biggest difference in my life, because I don't have any control. I mean, like, guys, we don't have any control. Look at it. Look at the world. We are literally stuck in our houses, forced to wear masks. And that was taken away so easily when we thought, oh, we have the right to go outside. We have the right to meet people. We have the right to shake someone's hand. But it's gone. But that's the great thing with God. It's not gone with him, because when he has the control, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. And so I know sometimes it can be crazy, because you're just like, Joy, the world is insane. Like, I don't believe in God. I don't believe in God because there's too much crap going on. Yeah, I'm going to give you a really short story real quick. I'm going to break down the Bible for you. So in the beginning, God created the earth. He made it an amazing paradise with a lot of fruit, which I'm totally a fan of fruit. I would have loved that paradise. And he put man and woman in it. And he was like, hey, guess what? You can eat everything except from the fruit of this one tree. And right then he was giving them a choice. He was like, either you can follow me or you can choose your own path. And so guess what, guys? They're human. So what did? They ate the fruit they weren't supposed to. Let's face it, we all would, because that's who we are. And in doing so, sin was brought into the world, and we broke our connection with God. And pretty much the world fell apart, kept falling apart. All this bad stuff was happening. And then to reconnect us with God, God came down as a human. He lived 33 years without ever sinning. And then in the end, because people were jealous of him, they accused him of charges that were not true. They killed him. They crucified him, which means they literally nailed him to a cross. And then he died, and he was buried. And then on the 3 days later, he rose again, proving that he is God. And the crazy part about this story is he did that for us. And so why do I believe in God? Because I'm a terrible person I'm human, yet God of the universe loves me so much that he came down and he died for me. How is that? That's mind-blowing. Like, seriously, mind-blowing. And just, he did it so he could have a relationship with us, that we could spend eternity with him. And so even with all this stuff and all this wanting to be published and to have my books out there, it doesn't matter, because I know God has a plan. And I know God has a plan in that my faith is only in him. And the crazy thing is, I'm published. And people from all over the world have read my books. I saw you guys. You said Ireland, India, Egypt, London, Germany. Technically, I'm already an international author. And that's the crazy thing, is that I might not have gotten exactly what I wanted, but I have you guys. And even when I was sick and I couldn't leave my house and I've been in pain, he's given me you guys and this chance to know you and to talk to you. And just the fact that I get to reply to comments, I get to see how excited you guys are about everything, is amazing to me. And so yeah, whatever happens, it's all in God's hands. And I just, I love you all so much. And I love you for being part of my life and for reading my books and for making this girl who's been sick. I'm not gonna cry. I'm not crying. I'm definitely not crying. Thank you. I told you guys I wasn't crying. I'm just, my eyes are watering or just like sweating. It's like super hot out. Just kidding. I can't even use that excuse. It's really cold today. I love you guys. I love you so much. And whatever happens, again, it's in God's hands. And I just want to thank you for being part of my story, for just letting me share this crazy ride I went on, and the fact that, I don't know, you've been such a blessing to me, and I don't think you'll understand how much I love you. And so thank you. I know this story didn't go as you thought it would. You're expecting to be like, Joy, oh my gosh, she's getting published and this is amazing. It's fine. Because again, I have you guys. Oh my gosh, this is so ridiculous. I'm crying on a live stream. That is how I'm not like Carter. So, I want to thank you. And you guys are coming up with a fandom name. That is literally so cute. I love you so much. I'm not crying again. I'm not going to cry again because that'd be super embarrassing. So, that's the end of this story. I love you. And I want to encourage you in something. The world is kind of crazy right now. And I know it can seem like there isn't any hope. But there is. God's hope. And so I encourage you, just talk to him. He's waiting, guys. I know it can seem scary that you're not sure if you can trust something you've never seen, but he's there. I encourage you to pick up a Bible and read the book of Luke. It's in the New Testament, and it just tells a story that is unlike any story any of us have ever read. Those of you who read it and know it, you know what I'm talking about. You know how amazing it is. Because when it comes down to it, this isn't the end, and we all know that. Because if you ask yourself, okay, what comes after this? Everyone knows that there's this sense of eternity. There's this sense of there's something more. And I don't want you to miss out on an eternity of spending it with God in heaven. And if you don't accept him, then you don't get to experience that eternity with him and that love that is never ending. So right now, when it's terrifying, where we feel we can't even talk to people without this fear of somehow it's going to affect us and that we could die, you don't have to be afraid. I'm not afraid. And I don't want you to be afraid. And I know this is taking a turn that you never expected. But God's in every one of my stories because he's my creator. I'm his story, which sounds weird, but the story he has written. You know what I'm saying. Someone asked, "You're not dying, are you?" No, I'm not dying. I have just pain, lung problems, liver problems. I'm just a broken, odd person. So, you know, it's hard. Being so odd. But I've gone on random tangents in this. But I love you. And if you have questions, I'm going to start another live stream after this. And whatever questions you have, it can be about Christianity. It can be about my writing. It can be about illness and just getting through pain. But I don't want to leave you without hope, because there's so much hope and it's waiting for you. So I love you. Thank you for being part of this. And I'm going to start a live stream after this, because there's a story that is written that you need to hear. I love you so much. And I'm not sure you will ever understand exactly how much I do. But I do. With all my odd heart. I love you guys.